All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power, and in today's video, I want to talk about the importance of lighting in bodybuilding. Specifically, if you look at the two most recent IFBB Pro shows, the New York Pro and the Cali Pro, separated by only 1 week. These two shows were 1 week apart, and the lighting at each show was drastically different. Now, I want to take Max Charles, for example. Max competed in both shows, and he was one of the best conditioned guys at both shows. So under any lighting, you would see the most conditioning and detail from Max. So he makes a good example for this video. So I want to compare the lighting from Cali and from New York, using Max Charles as an example. Now, granted, the New York Pro was held in Tampa this year, and the Cali Pro was held in Vegas. So maybe these were less than typical circumstances, and that could have been a factor in the lighting. But I want to talk about it. So first, let's take a look at a front double bicep shot of Max under both lighting conditions. Now, initially, a lot of people complained about the lighting at the New York Pro, saying it washed the guys out. That's why they didn't look as conditioned. But then when you look at the lighting in Cali, you see a very different story and a very different picture. So obviously, the better quality image, and these are from NPC News Online, by the way, one of the best places you can go to get contest pictures. But the image on the right is the New York Pro, and the image on the left is the Cali Pro. So this is how much of a difference the right lighting can make in bodybuilding. Look at Max Charles's biceps in the Cali Pro shot on the left. You can see almost no definition whatsoever in his arms. His arms are completely washed out. You can barely see the shape of the head of the bicep in comparison to the New York Pro shot. Now look at his abs. Look at how washed out his abs are at the Cali Pro compared to his abs at the New York Pro. It's almost a night and day difference. He almost doesn't look like the same bodybuilder. Now, his legs, they kind of look similar, and I think the reason for this, it looked like the way they had the lighting at the Cali Pro, it looked like the lighting was at the base of the stage, shining almost directly up at the competitor. Now, at the New York Pro, they had the lighting set back a little bit more by where the cameras were at, and up, and shining down and forward onto the competitor. So that's kind of the difference that I saw here. But number one, the New York Pro was a lot brighter, and that's why a lot of people are saying it washed out the conditioning of the competitors. But the Cali Pro was a lot darker, and this is the result that you got. And I think, and here's the issue that I have, this is what I wanted to get to, is I think there should be, at least on the pro level, a standard of lighting that just goes across all shows. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it can't be that difficult to say, you know, get a lighting company or a lighting technician or a light engineer crew and say, these are the rules. This is what you got to do for each show. This is the ideal lighting circumstance for a bodybuilding show. Let's try to keep this relatively uniform across the board with bodybuilding shows, so we don't have a show a week apart where the competitors look entirely different because of the lighting. And I think in this case, the lighting was so bad you could almost not even watch the live stream of the Cali Pro because you really couldn't even tell how these guys looked because of the lighting. So the problem isn't necessarily for the judges. I'm sure the judges being in the front row, the lighting isn't going to matter as much to them, but to the audience and to the viewer and to the bodybuilding fan looking back at pictures or watching the live stream, it's a really weird experience to go from watching the New York Pro, which arguably now, looking back, had pretty good lighting in comparison to the Cali Pro, and a lot of people were complaining about that. Now, there's also the comparison that you could make if you go back to the 90s. We talked about this in a prior video, but the lighting in the 90s was a tad different as well, and it was primarily down lighting. And down lighting essentially is a light that shines directly down on the competitor, casting more shadows and making more contrast with their physique, making them look better, more defined by definition. And a good example of that would be the photos that I'm showing you guys right now. This is from the 1999 British Grand Prix. Now, even though these pictures are black and white, you can tell what I'm talking about with the shadow effect on their physique. You can see if the light is shining directly down on them, then body parts like their pecs or their shoulders they're going to cast a shadow. Their abs are going to cast a shadow because the light is shining directly down on them, and as a result, they're going to look more defined, and that makes the viewing experience, to me, a better experience. Now, the thing about lighting, and this is the thing I had an issue with the New York Pro, is they said the lighting was the reason these guys looked out of shape. If that were true, like I said in my last video, then why would Max Charles still look so much better conditioned than all these guys if the lighting was the reason for their conditioning looking off? And the reason is the lighting can't be blamed for someone looking off, because someone looking on is always going to look more on than the guys who are off under any lighting circumstance. I don't think it's that big of a deal in that regard for the judges trying to determine who's in better shape, because someone in better shape is going to look in better shape under any condition. But then you have a whole nother issue, which I noticed at the Cali Pro. If you look at some of the comparison shots where there's multiple guys on stage at the same time, based on the placement of the lighting, one guy could look way better than the other if he was standing directly in front of that light. His physique was the physique that stood out. So then you have this other issue of the lighting being this weird lighting situation like you have at the Cali Pro, where it could create an unfair advantage just based on where you're placed on stage, because the lighting isn't even throughout the stage. The lighting was different on different parts of the stage at the Cali Pro, and that is where the real issue comes into play. And this photo from the Cali Pro is a prime example of it. The guy in the middle clearly is lit differently than the guy on the other sides of him. And this is comparison round. This is for judging. This is for your score. And he looks better just because of the lighting. And part of the reason why I wanted to make this video is there was a lot of people saying, well, some of these guys that competed in New York, they look so much worse just a week later in Cali. And I don't think they really looked that much worse, or really worse at all, some of them. It was just the lighting was so much different. It made them look worse because it washed them out. It was hard to see definition. Look at this shot of Max Charles' back double bicep here. Compare the New York Pro and the Cali. He is like completely washed out. His entire back at the Cali Pro, the detail on his back is like almost not even visible because of the lighting, except for the kind of reflection cast on his traps and his upper shoulders there. But then look at the New York Pro. Even though Max's back isn't really the strongest point for him, you can see definition all throughout his center and mid-back. You can see the veins. You can almost see, that lower back kind of getting some definition there where the Christmas tree should be. And it's just a night and day difference. And it's insane to me that there wouldn't at least be some lighting guidelines for every pro show to follow, to at least give them all a similar look. And it's not a huge deal. I don't think it's the biggest problem in the world, but if they're going to transition over to, and I think they are going to, a more live stream based model, a more internet based viewing experience so that fans online all around the world can watch, and especially now in the situation that we're in where we can't really have large gatherings right now, I think they're going to switch more towards that model. And if they're going to do that, I think lighting needs to be a major focus of that transition. Make the lighting better, make the lighting uniform, even better than the New York Pro. Now looking at the New York Pro, I don't think it was that big of a deal, but I think the lighting should be a little bit more of a down lighting effect like the 1990s. And I got to give these live streams credit because of the New York Pro and the Cali Pro, they listened to the fans. They didn't do all those crazy side shots panning around the stage. They kept a straight, dead-on angle of the live stream, and I think that was fantastic. But I just think the lighting needs to be more uniform across divisions. I don't know why they shouldn't or couldn't have just guidelines for these promoters or the people that are setting up the venue or whatever. This is the lighting we want. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about the difference in lighting between the Cali and the New York, and what you guys think the solution would be to fixing that. And this isn't like a negative thing towards the promoters of the Cali Pro. I'm sure they wanted the lighting to look good. It just didn't. So from a fan's perspective, this is just a criticism that I think they could fix or work on in the future, because honestly, when I saw the pictures of Max compared to the pictures of Max from New York, it was like an insane difference to me. He was like the lighting completely almost ruined his physique. He looked like a different bodybuilder, which was just insane to me. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please give the video a thumbs up if you did in fact enjoy it. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.